We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Saturday. And here's what I want to tell you about Saturday. If you're retired, every motherfucking day is Saturday, and it's awesome. I always like Fridays. I really love Saturdays. Sundays always weirded me out because while it's a good day and you get to do a lot of things, you know what's coming next, going back to work. Well, this is my work. I do this pretty much every day, and I happen to love doing it. So every day is kind of like Saturday to me. And I wish for all of you out there in the audience, you have that moment in time in your life when you feel like every day is a Saturday. That's a fucking awesome thing. Of course, you got to be old and decrepit like me to get there generally, but it's one of the few things you look forward to when you get to be this age. You don't have as many things to do as you did when you were 30, but you learn to enjoy the simple things. And I've learned how to do that. Anyhow, we've got a lot of emails to read, so we're going to get that going right away. So let's check them out. First one says, I have read much lately about the crisis at the border. I put it in quotes because it only refers to the border between Mexico and Texas. The other three states that border Mexico, Arizona, New Mexico, and California, aren't having these problems. Isn't that amazing? The crisis is totally manufactured by Texas and the repubes. I'd really appreciate if you'd emphasize the fact that California has the busiest migrant crossing, but has none of the problems screamed about in Texas. We welcome the immigrants, process them through, and put them to work, often in the agricultural fields of the Central Valley. Anyone who eats produce, they don't grow themselves. It's a good chance it came from California. Thank you for all the information and news you disseminate, Grandma Patty. Well, Grandma Patty, you're absolutely right. And isn't it surprising that Texas is the one that fabricates the problem? I've seen videos of people down on the border in that park where they're supposed to be having the standoff, and it looks pretty dead. It doesn't look like there's much going on down there, but it's just part and parcel to what I've said before, how the Republicans will take something, blow it out of proportion, and try to use it to stain or discredit Joe Biden or the Democrats. Virtually everything they bitch about is bullshit. It's always exaggerated and it's really not a thing. Now, I'm not saying we don't have people coming across the border, and there are some problems there, but it's nowhere near what they're suggesting. And the fact of the matter is, this isn't a new problem. Every president has had this problem. The idea that Donald Trump did everything and Joe Biden has done nothing is absolutely ridiculous. Because frankly, if Donald Trump was so successful with the border, then why are we having a problem now? He supposedly fixed it with his wonderful wall. Well, the wall was not that much of a wall. It didn't hold up very well. In fact, most of what was done was repairs to an existing wall. So there wasn't as much new wall put up. And then we see all these videos of people climbing over it and tearing it down and such. Yep, everything Donald Trump does goes to shit, including this wondrous wall that he told us about. And Grandma Patty, you're right. It's funny, we don't hear the problems in California. May have something to do with the fact that it's a blue state. And the red states are a bunch of fucking whiners. It's not going well for them. We're now trying to come up with a border plan, and now all of a sudden the Republicans don't want any part of it. But they're in a bad situation here. They're damned if they do and damned if they don't. If they accept this border plan, then Joe Biden gets a win. But if they don't accept it, then they get portrayed as the people who really don't want to fix the border. It's a lose-lose situation for them, and that seems oh so typical with Republicans. All right. The next email comes from Gussie. Says, hi, Boomer. As always, old soul made me enthralled with her updates on the girls and women that she and her daughter helped so benevolently. I shed a few tears as she emotionally relayed the young girl's experience. I do believe Republicans have given would-be rapists an okay to allow their deviance to flourish. These losers always pick a weaker victim so that they can feel more powerful. Once we codify Roe v. Wade, I think we should add physical castration as a penalty for rape, just for kicks. Gussie. Well, I don't disagree with you. I'm not a bleeding heart liberal in the sense where I don't think people should be punished. And I think there are certain people that need capital punishment, people that are non-redeemable, people like pedophiles, people like rapists, people like serial killers. Those people, they're unredeemable. They've forfeited their chance to live in this society, and they should be done away with. Now, I know a lot of people will say, well, capital punishment doesn't deter anything. Well, it kind of does. It deters the people who committed the crimes because they'll never be able to do it again. I'm sure people will argue with me on this, and that's fine. You can believe what you want. I'll believe what I want. Bottom line is, we need to get them off the fucking streets. And instead of encouraging and helping them, like what is going on now, we need to take them out of the equation one way or another, whether it be capital punishment, castration, or just life sentences. Next one says, hi, Mike, direct from the NFL. Taylor Swift will sing the national anthem, perform at halftime, coach the Chiefs, and catch the winning touchdown thrown by her boyfriend at the Super Bowl. That is why the Super Bowl is rigged. I'm placing my bet right now. All the best, Roy. I got to be honest with you. I so love the fact that Republicans are just losing their shit over Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift's got a boyfriend. She's had a number of boyfriends. She wants to support her boyfriend, so she goes to her games. She's a huge star, so the networks will put her on screen. And now they hold her responsible because she happens to be famous, and the people in the media want to benefit from her being there. What they really don't like is the fact that she is a liberal and she doesn't mind speaking her mind. That's something you won't always get from celebrities. Well, unless of course you get like John Voight, these dumb fucks that are Trumplafucks. They're shit canning their careers anyway. When this is all said and done, they're going to be standing there looking stupid. But the fact that Taylor Swift doesn't mind speaking out, that says a lot about her. She's probably got more to lose by speaking out than anybody else in the entertainment world. But she doesn't care. It's important to her. And this is why it's so troubling to the Republicans. She's very powerful. She influences a lot of people, a lot of young people that are going to be affecting this election and in 2028. If Taylor Swift gets behind Joe Biden, gets people to register for the vote, fucking Republicans are done. Now, I heard something she said. She said she regrets not getting involved in the 2016 election. She thought she might have done some good back then and maybe a help to avoid Donald Trump becoming president. In 2020, she did endorse Joe Biden. It wasn't quite as public as what we're seeing now. So hopefully she'll endorse Joe Biden in 2024 and we can wrap this motherfucker up early. All right. Hello, Mike. As always, it is good listening to your podcast daily. It's good company on my walks. Hope that you and your family are well and that little Missy is still keeping you on your toes. I haven't seen her for a little while. I think I'm going to see her this week. But yeah, she keeps me on her toes. The important thing is she loves me. I love that. But if grandma's around, I'm definitely second place. Grandma's her girl. And I got to be careful. She'll include me in some things. Other things, it's just grandma and little Missy's time. And I should not step on anybody's toes there. But yeah, I miss that kid when I don't see her. And hopefully we're going to do that this week. Because I'll tell you now, I think I told you before that my wife and I were going to South Padre Island on February 10th. That's off. We are, in fact, going back to Georgia on February 10th, which I feel more comfortable with and look more forward to. Maybe we'll go to Texas at some point. It wasn't anything about politics. It was that I'm hearing that it's pretty windy and we don't know that there's that much to do. And Savannah, that's kind of our second home. So we'd have much more fun there. So we will not be in Texas, and I'm not too sorry about that, but we will be in Georgia. I'm excited about that. Email goes on, I'm thinking to send you the perfect utopian ideas I have for this country, but I will digress, at least for now. And yes, I have written before. I disagree with the majority of people who expects and condemns JB for not running out there with each and every accomplishment. The sane majority believes actions speak louder than words. And frankly, if the country refuses to acknowledge what is being done, well, that's on them. The blowhard we had last administration, well, he blew and he got bugger all accomplished. So kudos to Joe. And why is that? The folks need to be spoon fed at every turn. Well, I'll tell you, there's a lot of stupid people in this country, people that don't pay attention. And this is Republicans and Democrats. I get questions all the time that they should know the answers to. They should, if they're listening to my TikToks or the podcast, they know the answers. And, I appreciate their support, but listen to what's being said. That's the point it's being said. We want people not to be nervous. We want people to be confident and understand what's truly going on, as opposed to me doing a bunch of TikToks and then asking me the same questions I've answered all day. Don't get me wrong. I'm happy to answer them, and I will. But what bothers me about it is we need people to understand. We need people to comprehend in order to accomplish what we're hoping to accomplish. But that's certainly on the Republican side, but some on the Democratic side too. The email goes on. Also, I do not think that Old Soul needs to be on social media extensively. She's getting things done in her quiet way. Thank you, Old Soul. In a world out there, she doesn't need to be hunted down by the insane Thuglikins looking back. Yeah, there's some truth to that. They on several do-gooders, they were mostly underground activities that got the job at hand done. Harriet Tubman, the Underground Railroad. Let's keep Old Soul safe and the folks in her circle. Don't disagree with you. She's a Black woman with intelligence and articulate, and that's the one thing the Republicans do not like. So we'll protect her here. Those folks listening to the Rational Boomer podcast are 99.99% friends. So she won't have a problem here. And if she does, I'll fuck you up. Anyway, the email goes on. I am like that. I do not like the publicity. Anything I do from the heart. I do not need to advertise. I will write my manifesto another time. I have such an issue with DT and his tactics, and for the most part, the judicial system caving into him. Arg. Did I ever tell you how my little Junie girl, she says to me, Grandpa, let's play pirates. I said, okay, how do you play pirates? She puts one hand over one eye and she goes, arg. I don't know where she got that from, but I think it's hilarious every time I see her. Anyway, I digress. Now, that's another thing. Every time there's something to come out, the wherewithals shout it out only to disappoint. I'm aware that life happens, but I would rather be hit with a decision than being hyped up only to be let down. Remember when DT was going to be led away in handcuffs on January 20th, his departure from office? Here we are going on 4 years later, and DT is still raging hell. I want to talk about that. I think a lot of people did believe that he'd be carried away in handcuffs. I never did. I understand the process takes some time. But a lot of people felt that way, and a lot of people were disappointed by that. And I'm sorry if you're disappointed, but you can't deny that there are some things going on with Donald Trump now. 91 felony charges. He's going to have every bit of money and property and power taken away from him. So those people who still say, oh, nothing's happened to Donald Trump. Well, I got to tell you, if you were Donald Trump and had the same things happen to you, you'd be going through some things. Email continues. Okay, I'm done. Thanks for all you are doing to help folks like me maintain sanity. I look forward to hearing your podcast. Don't have other social media. Facebook, yes. Marcy. Well, thank you, Marcy. I appreciate that. Next one. Hi, Mike. It's been a while since I've written. I'm still listening, although sometimes I have to take a break because politics and current events get on my nerves too much. You always make me feel better no matter what's happening, so I always return. I listened to your commercial where you encourage people to start their own podcast with Spotify. It's something I've been thinking about for over a year now, and I decided to take the plunge. I've been using Zoom to connect with people and plan on using YouTube, Substack, and Spotify Apple to publish the interviews. I've got 4 interviews under my belts so far, and I would like to do a few more. I'm planning on releasing them weekly once I've recorded most of them. My guests are people who are in their 3rd chapter and are doing interesting stuff with their lives. Some are still in their chosen careers with no intention of retiring, and others started new products or projects unrelated to the work they're doing in their younger years. I don't want to put age limitations on my guests because there are some cool younger folks who are doing amazing things. As I've heard you say, it's my show. I'll do whatever the fuck I want. Samesies. I write a Substack newsletter aimed at people our age to encourage them to live out their last chapter in a way that is meaningful to them. I talk about the fear of death, issues with adult children, parents with mental illness and sobriety. I also share personal essays from my life. And here's a link. If you are interested, I'll check it out. So the podcast goes along with the newsletter. Substack does have podcast features, but I will use Spotify instead. I focus on showcasing mostly women, but will take a man who is interesting and doing cool stuff. Mike, you could be that man for my first season. Are you interested? Hell yeah. I'll do the show. You know me, I can talk for fucking ever. And I would be honored if I was the first guy on your show. Absolutely, I will do it. Just email me. I use Zoom for this show too, so it would be easy to set it up. She winds up the email saying, "You're a famous guy now, and I'm just a little old grandma from the Jersey Shore. I'd love it if you said yes, but of course I will continue to be a loyal fan regardless. Thanks, Mike, for reading this long thing. Best, I think the name is pronounced Ilona. Yeah, I'd absolutely do it. Somebody wants me on a podcast. I can't, short of it being a Republican wanting to go at it, I would say yes to any podcast. I have no problem with that. And the reason, and it's not about, self promotion or anything, that I've been in a situation especially when I was first starting out the podcast, I thought I would um, need to get guests. So there were some obvious guests I would have, even including some TikTokers that, I might be peers with. Didn't have a lot of luck with that. I either didn't get responses or they wanted to sell a book or whatever. So that's when I said, fuck it. I'm just going to have the people who listen to the show on the show. On a rare occasion, I'll have somebody else that I think is worthy of it, but mostly um, it's all listeners or Ed or Old Soul. Um, but I'm happy to go on any podcast, and especially yours, Alona. I think you've got a good idea for a podcast, and I think it would be interesting. Not only will I come on the show, I'll listen to the podcast. And I'll be honest with you, I don't listen to that many podcasts, just a few here and there, and most of them aren't politically related. Like if I'm on a plane or something and I want to listen to a podcast, I might listen to Mark Maron or Fly on a Wall with Dana Carvey and um, Spade, David Spade. I just want my mind to relax. I listen to news all day long and I need those breaks from time to time. All right. The next email goes as such. Well, Boomer, in that Trump says he is more popular and has more fans than someone named Taylor Swift, I say it's time. It's time for a dance off. Taylor can do her signature mom croon dance. Trump will, of course, respond with the Trump trot, doing the shifty two-step with double-fisted circle jerk move. He's such a legend in his own mind. What's left of it? Thanks, Paul. I think a dance off is probably wise to do at this point. I think Taylor will kick his ass. I would suggest this to Donald Trump, though, before you get into a dance off. I would make sure at least you start with a clean diaper. You don't want anything restricting you, and you don't want to create ridiculous stench that might make the judges offended. So, just a tip. All right. The next email says, "Hi, Mike. Just wanted you to know the reason I don't respond back to you is because when you contact me, the name changes from Rational Boomer to Rational Boomer One or Rational Boomer, and I don't know if that's you. So sorry. I just don't want you to think I'm avoiding you, Joseph." Well, I get this a lot, and it's ongoing every fucking day. Every fucking day. There are people on TikTok that have that are impersonating me, and they're trying to sell people crypto and all this other bullshit. And they will have like Rational Boomer One or Rational Boomer Zero or Rational Boomer. They have slight variations on my name. They will use my picture, and then they'll act as if they're me. They will come up and say, "Hey, I want to follow you." Here's what you need to understand. I don't have a backup account. No backup account. I have one account. I've always had one account. I'm one of the lucky ones that haven't been banned and had to start new accounts. So I have one account. Any other account that has a different title, not me. If they're trying to sell you something, not me. Just report them and block them. That's all I ask that you do. Now, I've gone to TikTok. A lot of people have gone to TikTok and reported these fucks, but TikTok refuses to do anything. So I don't really know what to do about it except warn people, do not interact with these folks, report them and block them. And Joseph, I didn't think you were ignoring me because I wasn't emailing you. It was these dumb fucks. All right, the last email. "Hi, Mike. Billy and I are listening to the podcast, and I'm so angry. I want to find that piece of shit who has abused Old Soul's newest roommate. That scumbag needs to die. Just spit it out, Jamie. Tell me what you really think. I'm so glad that the young girl has Old Soul to help her. I pray that she gets the help she needs when she gets home. I hope the mom and dad get her some justice. Jamie." I do too. I was feeling the same thing. I was thinking to myself, maybe I could go down to Texas, bring some friends, and corral this motherfucker and maybe give him what for. Of course, I'm 63 years old. I'm not squaring up with anybody anymore. But I would like to find a way to find this clown and take him out of the equation one way or another. So I'm with you, Jamie. I'm just as angry about it, and I'm guessing a lot of folks in the audience feel the same way. I mean, it's essentially like there's Old Soul out there, this angel that helps people, helps young women, especially underage young women, give them a place to stay that's safe and some comfort. And I got to tell you, if you have the time to talk to Old Soul, and she can consult with you, she can be very helpful to a lot of people. You know that from listening to her on the show. And then you throw in her daughter, who sounds amazing as well. That's not only a nice place to stay, but it's also some support that they may not be getting elsewhere. So much thanks to Old Soul for the things she does. And I understand your anger, Jamie. All right. Well, the big news story that's going on isn't political. Well, it is, but it's not. You remember when these Iranian terrorists sent out a drone, attacked an American base, and killed 3 American soldiers? Joe Biden said that he would respond to this, he would retaliate, that there would be retribution. God damn it, there was. The U.S. military launched an air assault on dozens of sites in Iraq and Syria used by Iranian-backed militias and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Friday in the opening salvo of the retaliation for the drone strike that killed 3 U.S. troops in Jordan last weekend. Now, the massive barrage of strikes hit more than 85 targets at 7 locations, including command and control headquarters, intelligence centers, rockets and missiles, drone and ammunition storage sites, and other facilities that were connected to the militias or the IRGC Quds Force, the Guard's expeditionary unit. President Joe Biden made it clear in a statement that there will be more to come. I mean, this was a devastating strike, but as Joe said, we ain't done yet. You're going to get your fuck around and find out moment. And they did yesterday, and there's more to come. The U.S. strikes appeared to stop short of directly targeting Iran or senior leaders of the Revolutionary Guard force within its borders as the U.S. tries to prevent the conflict from escalating even further. Iran has denied it was behind the Jordan attack. Oh, you think they lie? It was unclear what the impact will be of the strikes. Days of U.S. warnings may have sent militia members scattering into hiding, with multiple groups operating at various locations in several countries. A knockout blow is unlikely. Though one of the main Iran-backed militias, Kataib Hezbollah, said it was suspending attacks on American troops, others have vowed to continue fighting, casting themselves as champions of the Palestinian cause, while the war in Gaza shows no sign of ending. Biden warned our response began today. It will continue at times and places of our choosing. Let all those who might seek to do us harm know this: if you harm an American, we will respond. He and other top U.S. leaders had been saying for days that any American response wouldn't be just one hit, but a tiered response over time. So, as devastating as it was yesterday, there's more to come. Now, National Security Council spokesman John Kirby said the targets were carefully selected to avoid civilian casualties and based on clear, irrefutable evidence that they were connected to attacks on the U.S. personnel. He declined to talk about the evidence. It's going to be hard for the Republicans, too. They are going to suggest that Joe Biden's weak, and this proves that Joe Biden is not weak, that he's willing to go full force after the people that committed crimes against this country and killed American troops. We saw what happened yesterday, and it was devastating on those targets, but it's not going to be done. I think Joe Biden is going to make his point well understood. And if it gets them to stop doing this, wonderful. I've also heard that there are some talks about some more prisoner releases in the Hamas-Israeli war, even the possibility of a ceasefire. Some people say it's likely, some people say it's not. But remember what I've told you. For as much heat as Joe Biden's getting over this Israel-Hamas war, assuming it ends sometime between now and November, Joe's going to get a lot of credit for it. And this is going to drive the Republicans crazy. They don't want Joe Biden to get a win. This is one of the other talking points that they have that they're trying to tear Joe Biden down with. And if this ends and Joe Biden is integral in this ceasefire when it occurs, then Joe's going to get the credit. And that's going to fuck with their heads. Put it this way: as you watch what's going on in this country, everything positive is going Joe Biden's way. They had the jobs report come out yesterday, 353,000 new jobs. He's got well over 15 million since he came into office, new jobs. And you know what Donald Trump had? He had minus 2.5 million. He was the worst jobs president in the history of this country. Got the stock market going off at record levels. We've got unemployment holding steady at 3.7, and understand that 4% is full employment. So everything's going good. Even Larry Kudlow, who was Donald Trump's financial guy, came out. Now, remember, he was one of the messaging that went out as soon as Joe Biden got into office. Oh, we're going to have a recession. We're going to have a recession. And nothing I saw said we were going to have a recession. Guess what? We didn't have a recession. And then they went off and say, yeah, but the stock market, but inflation. But now inflation is going down. And even Larry Kudlow on a show where he was interviewed had to say, the economy's pretty good. The job market's pretty good. And it's all on Joe Biden. Joe Biden did it. So when Donald Trump's own people are disputing the bullshit he says, we're winning. Now, in terms of the strikes in Iraq and Syria, those were where the strikes took place over about 30 minutes, and 3 of the sites stuck were in Iraq and 4 were in Syria. So we'll see what's coming up next. I don't know if we'll have more today or not, but trust, there is more coming, and there is going to be a price to pay for attacking Americans and killing American soldiers. All right. We are going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. All right. The next story is one that people are freaking out about. And before you freak out about it, just listen to what's going on here and what I think is happening. And you need to relax. District Court Judge Tanya Chutkin announced Friday that the federal trial of former President Donald Trump on charges related to his effort to steal the 2020 election is no longer set to begin on March 4th. It will be postponed. Now, Chutkin delayed the start of the trial because an appeals court has yet to rule on Trump's claim that he has absolute immunity from prosecution for anything he did while president, and that therefore the entire case should be dismissed, which is bullshit and is not going to happen. Now, the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals heard arguments on Trump's claim of absolute immunity on January 9th, despite taking up the case on an expedited pace. The court has not yet issued an opinion. Whatever verdict the appeals court reaches, the absolute immunity argument will almost certainly be appealed to the Supreme Court. Trump faces 4 felony charges in the case for his alleged role in trying to overturn the 2020 election. He also faces a felony criminal case for allegedly illegally taking classified documents and paying hush money to a porn star, Manhattan District, and a state prosecution for allegedly trying to overturn the 2020 election in Georgia. Now, the former president's bid for absolute immunity is an attempt not only to get the case brought against the, hold on a second here, not only something he wants to get brought against the Supreme Court, he's trying to buy some time too. It's only an attempt to get special prosecutor Jack Smith tossed. But what it's going to do is delay the trial. Now, by delaying his trials, Trump could evade a guilty decision that would likely hurt him in the polls before the election. And if he won in November, he could avoid prosecution entirely, as sitting presidents are protected from facing criminal trials while in office. Now, that's not going to happen. As I've said, I don't see him being able to hold up under the stress and strain that he's going through. Because even if no convictions of any felony charges happen until the election, this lawsuit, this lawsuit in New York, where Judge Engoron is going to take everything fucking away from him, that's going to kill him. It's going to take all the piss and vinegar out of him. It's going to be emotionally draining. And that in itself may be the thing that brings Donald Trump down. Now, among Trump's 4 different trials, the case delayed Friday was the most significant one that was likely to reach a conclusion by the election. And I think it still will. Judge Aileen Cannon, the Trump appointed judge overseeing his classified documents trial, has done everything in her power to slow court proceedings. In that case, Trump's trial in Georgia has already slated to start late at the date of August 5th, but that could be up in the air amid questions about Fani Willis and her relationship with the special prosecutor. Now, Trump's Manhattan trial for alleged financial crimes related to hush money paid to Stormy Daniels is set to start in March 26th, and that should conclude before the election. The 3-judge panel on the D.C. Circuit Appeals Court that heard Trump's absolute immunity argument appeared highly skeptical that presidents are categorically immune from prosecution for anything they do while in office, including, as Trump lawyer admitted in court, ordering SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival, which is ridiculous. There's no way the appeals court is going to find in his favor. But without an opinion from the appeals court and with the expectation of a Supreme Court appeal with possible arguments, the trial could not begin at its scheduled start date of March 4th. No new start date has been scheduled as yet. Now people are freaking out. Oh, he's going to delay it. He's going to be successful in delaying it. Why would Judge Chutkan take it off the calendar? Well, that's a good question. And it isn't because she doesn't care and she'll just do it whenever. It's because she's trying to break the legal gridlock. By her taking it off the calendar, that puts pressure on the appeals court. It's like saying, the fuck are you guys doing? Step it up. You're impeding this trial. And that's the last thing the appeals court wants to do. Now, with his election subversion trial in D.C., federal court is on ice. Judge Chutkan is turning the screws on the 3 appeals judges, jostling over if the former president has absolute immunity. Now, in an interview on CNN's Out Front with Aaron Burnett, former federal prosecutor and law professor Ryan Goodman discussed the impatient signaling coming from Chutkan to the D.C. Circuit Court. The court will set a new schedule if and when the mandate is returned, read her order. She could have put down another provisional date for the start of the trial, but she didn't, said Goodman, which gives us a sense of just how suspended the action currently is as we await the D.C. Circuit. Now, Chutkan's inclusion of the word if was actually very intentional, according to the expert. She's basically saying, in a certain sense, this is very disruptive to the trial. Now I'm having to suspend everything. So that's putting a little bit of extra pressure on the D.C. Circuit to rule. Goodman called the stagnant status of the case a good day for President Trump, but he's not necessarily out of the woods. So basically, what Judge Chutkan is doing is putting some pressure on the circuit court. She's making them look bad because now I got to delay this fucking thing because you motherfuckers can't do your job. They're going to feel that. And I suspect, as I always suspected, we're going to get an answer to that at some point very soon. Now, just because she's not picked another date doesn't mean she won't pick another date in March. That's conceivable. If she does, then Alvin Bragg will stand back and let her take the lead. Alvin Bragg with the Manhattan District case. But if she doesn't do it until April or May, then he will start off early and he will get to getting with the Manhattan trial. As I've told you before, we only need Donald Trump to be convicted of a couple of charges, and then it's over with. Whether it comes out of the Manhattan District, D.C., Georgia, Florida, it doesn't really fucking matter. Just so he gets some convictions. Those convictions sink it all for Donald Trump in terms of votes and in terms of his freedom. So don't get too excited about this. It's all still on track. You you and I both know that there was going to be some delays. It's just a matter of how long those delays are. I suspect the appellate court will come back within a week or so because they'll feel the pressure. And when they do, and it'll go to the Supreme Court. And I honestly believe in that particular situation, they're just not going to even hear it. I mean, it's a ridiculous claim. And then we'll be done, and then the case can go forward, and there's no way he's going to stop it again because he's gone all the way to the Supreme Court. So if it starts in April or even May, we're still talking at the latest an end date for a 2-month trial of July, which is well in advance of the election. So don't worry about this. Now, a lot of people are worried about this situation down in Georgia. Now, Georgia's Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis admitted yesterday in a court filing Friday that she had a personal relationship with a prosecutor she appointed to oversee her office's election interference case against former President Donald Trump. But you need to understand, not the best choice for her, not a good choice for her, but it's not illegal. It really has no bearing on the case. So they can try to shut things down with this, but it won't happen. It won't happen. Now, Willis denies in a 176-page filing that her relationship with the prosecutor, Nathan Wade, had any impact on the case proceedings. The admission comes weeks after one of Trump's co-defendants in the case, Mike Roman, alleged in a court filing that Willis and Wade had a romantic relationship. She personally benefited from claiming he used his salary from working on the case to bring Willis on expensive vacations. Willis's filing dismisses that suggestion. Now, Roman's motion wildly speculates that the district attorney somehow benefited financially from the investigation and prosecution of this criminal case, but provides no support to justify the conclusion. To be absolutely clear, the personal relationship between Special Prosecutor Wade and District Attorney Willis has never involved direct or indirect financial benefit to Attorney Willis. The filing states that the two have never shared any joint finances, financial accounts, or households, and have not merged their expenses in any way. All travel costs were divided between the two. It continued as both have substantial income and neither is financially reliant on the other. Now, where this would really come into play as far as being suspicious is if she had a relationship with somebody on the defense team or a judge or something like that. But this is somebody on her own team. So how can she game the situation if she's in a relationship with somebody on her own team? Again, this was not a smart move by Fani Willis to do this, knowing that it would probably get out, especially with the slimy fucking Republicans who will do anything to convolute the whole process and try to delay it and create chaos. But it's not illegal. It doesn't really have anything to do with the trial. I think she's going to testify the 14th or 15th. I think this will go away. It'll be another thing the Republicans tried and failed with. So I wouldn't get too worried about that. Now, the filing suggests that Roman's allegation, which Trump and his supporters have backed as proof corruption in the case, or attempt to have someone more sympathetic to Trump to take over the case. One may question whether the intent is to disqualify the prosecutor who has taken on all the abuse to pursue justice in this case at great personal cost, only to be substituted with someone less committed to do so, the filing states. In the event that Willis is removed or recuses herself from the case, which she's not going to do, it would fall on Georgia Attorney General Chris Carr, a Republican, to appoint another district attorney in the state to take over the proceedings. Last month, Carr was one of more than two dozen attorney generals to sign a friend of the court filing saying that the Colorado Supreme Court was wrong to remove Trump from its ballot over his 14th Amendment violations. Now, much of Roman's filing focuses on more than $650,000 Wade has collected in legal fees for his work on the case. Sounds like a lot of money. That salary, he alleges, is inappropriately high for a lawyer whose firm handles car accidents and family law disputes. Now, that's the other thing about Wade, is that he doesn't really have a lot of experience prosecuting cases like this. So again, another bad decision by Fani Willis. But it's not like this guy is paying off hookers or porn stars or grabbing women's genitals and there's some covert thing going on. I mean, it was a little covert and it should have been out there, and she should have been smart enough to expose it early, or at least not have him involved in this case. But that's neither here nor there. It's not something that's going to shit can the case. It's just not going to happen. She's not going to recuse herself, and she's not going to be taken off the case. Now, in her filing, Willis explained Special Prosecutor Wade made much more money than other special prosecutors only because Wade did much more work. To take on the role, he had to resign from 3 judicial appointments and largely step away from his private practice. There is simply no honest argument that Special Prosecutor Wade unduly benefited financially from his appointment, the filing said. Trump quickly attacked Willis, a frequent target of his, after her admission. By going after the most high-level person in the Republican nominee, she is able to get her lover much more money, almost $1 million, $650,000. You wish you had $1 million, Donnie? Then she would be able to get for the prosecution of any other person or individual. Trump wrote on Truth Social, that means the scam is totally discredited and over. Yeah, just like when you were asked about the award of $83 million to Eugene Carroll, you told the reporter at that point that, oh, I won that. It's on appeal. It's pretty much over. I won. No, you didn't, Donald. You've got 30 days, well, actually 3 weeks, to come up with $83 million one way or another, and it's not going to go well. While Trump is largely favored to be the GOP's choice for president, he has not yet secured the nomination. And Nikki Haley is going to do everything she can to make sure he doesn't, or at least make it tougher for him. I think what Nikki Haley, of course, is doing is just waiting till he keels over or drops out of the race, and then she wins by default. That's really the only strategy she could possibly have. Now, Trump has been indicted over 91 felony charges across 4 cases, including the one brought by Willis's office. His trial in one of them, a federal case concerning his efforts to overturn the 2020 election, was scheduled to start March 4th, but now it's been postponed, but we don't know to what date. Now, here's a story I think I talked about yesterday, and it's worth talking about again. It's reacting to a bombshell report that FBI agents failed to gain entry to a closet and a hidden room during the search of Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in August of 2022. Former U.S. Attorney Joyce Vance called it an inexplicable lapse by the agency, but conceded the reason for failing to investigate could still help Special Counsel Jack Smith. That's interesting. On Thursday, multiple news outlets reported on FBI's failure as investigators sought stolen documents taken by the former president after he lost his reelection bid in 2020, actually. According to ABC News, they were unable to access one of the rooms, which was locked, and there was no key made available, with agents being assured the space behind the door, an old stairwell turned into a closet with shelves, went nowhere. It's always a good idea to believe Donald Trump, isn't it? So they decided not to break it open, sources said, which was obviously a bad mistake. Now, the report adds that former president had asked for the lock to be changed on June 2nd, while his attorney, Evan Corcoran, was going through the property's basement looking for the documents the government had been seeking for some months. And that's the thing that may get Donald Trump in trouble. The fact that he went out of his way to make sure somebody didn't go in that office or room, that is obstruction of justice and is the main part of this indictment. Donald Trump obstructing justice, um, stealing classified documents, refusing to give them back, and then trying to hide them. That's problematic, and that's going to give Jack Smith a little more power, a little more evidence when he finally gets to court. Now, as ABC reported, through their investigation, Smith team learned that while Corcoran was still in the storage room, Trump asked a longtime Mar-a-Lago employee to change the lock on the closet. Why didn't Corcoran look into it? Now, for years, the lock on the closet was managed by the Secret Service, but on June 2nd, 2022, Trump had it changed and wanted the key, the sources said. One former maintenance worker described Trump's request as unusual. Yeah, I would guess. That would be fucking unusual. Now, with that in mind, ex-prosecutor Vance wrote on her Substack platform that Trump's trial before Judge Aileen Cannon is centered on obstruction of justice. And the key change at the same time a Trump lawyer was seeking documents could bolster the DOJ's charge. Now, the meat of the case against Trump is an effort to obstruct the investigation and to keep classified material from being recovered by the government, even after his own lawyers advised him he was required to return it. If Jack Smith's team has come up with evidence that Trump, for instance, changed the lock on his closet and stored documents there to conceal them from the government, that would be powerful when the case goes to trial. Now, I know a lot of people are concerned about Aileen Cannon and how she's trying to delay this. Jack Smith is going to make a filing regarding this situation, and how she responds to it is going to be a big deal. If she responds to help Donald Trump and continue to let him delay it, it puts Jack Smith in a better situation to go to the 11th Circuit and have her recused. And I still think that's pretty much what's going to happen. I think Jack Smith is just waiting for the right time to do it. I think that's what's going on here. Jack Smith is not somebody to be played with, and to think he'd just let her do whatever she wants seems ridiculous. All right. Let's talk about Clarence Thomas. We haven't talked about him for a while. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas is reportedly facing a lawsuit alleging a failure to pay taxes. Imagine this. He's grifting and he's also not paying taxes. Now, of course, there's already questions being raised about Thomas and other Supreme Court justices when it comes to determining whether they are following ethics rules. John Anthony Castro weighs in to explain his legal action. Castro, a long-shot Republican presidential candidate and tax attorney who filed a flurry of lawsuits seeking to remove former President Donald Trump and the GOP primary ballot from the GOP primary ballot, told Newsweek that he is filing a suit against Thomas in a Virginia court under Virginia Fraud Against Taxpayers Act. The outlet reported. Now, although he mailed the complaint to the court on Friday, he expects it to take 2 business days for the court to process and file the case. Now, that's not going to be good news for old Clarence. The outlet also outlines that Thomas is being accused of. The complaint, which was shared with Newsweek, alleges that in violation of VFATA, Clarence Thomas knowingly presented or caused to be presented a false and fraudulent claim, i.e. his 2005 Virginia state income tax return, to the Virginia Department of Taxation on April 15, 2016. A failed report, income from discharge of indebtedness, the report states. Now keep in mind, this is a state issue. This is not something the feds can weigh in on. So it's going to be a problem for Clarence Thomas. I don't know if it will go anywhere, but we'll see. As I've said about Clarence Thomas and all the other grifters on the Supreme Court, nothing is going to be done about them until after the 2024 election, presuming that the Democrats win the House and the Senate and the White House. Should that happen, well, the Supreme Court justices, you're going to see them change their tune. They're going to be much more accommodating because they know this shit is going to change. They're going to maybe stack the court. They're maybe going to impeach some judges. Yeah, they're going to have a different thing that they're going to have to deal with. They won't be so cocky and so confident anymore. Now, we've heard that Trump apparently has fired Alina Haba, whatever the fuck, and she should have been fired long ago. She has no clue what she's doing. Now, a political action committee closely tied to Donald Trump's reelection bid recently spent close to $250,000 to investigate the quality of work of his legal team, which has now suffered 2 losses to E. Jean Carroll and her attorneys. Yeah, that's right. Donald Trump had his own lawyers followed by investigators to see if they were doing the job. Well, unfortunately, Donald, all the lawyers did exactly what you told them to do, and you failed. Not because the lawyers are bad, well, they are, but because you don't know fuck all about the law, and you forced them in this situation. And unfortunately, these dumbass lawyers fell right into it and did whatever you said. Now, according to an exclusive report from the Daily Beast, Jose Pagliari, FEC filings submitted this week show that the former president's Save America PAC made payments of $238,100 in the last 6 months to CTS Research, a New York-based private investigation firm, after paying the company another $152,000 earlier in the year. So we're talking about $390,000 to investigate his own lawyers. Paranoid much? According to the Beast, Trump insiders confirmed that expenditures were made to check out whether Trump's team had tracked down and interviewed any witnesses who could help him in his sexual assault and defamation cases that ultimately led to a combined $88.3 million in damages in 2 trials. Wow. How about you just ask the lawyers or look at their documentation? You really need to hire somebody for $390,000 to make sure they're doing their job? Donnie, I thought you only hired the best people. You wouldn't have to be looking out and trying to find out if the best people actually did the fucking job. Now, those attorneys likely include controversial lead attorney Alina Haba, who is reportedly on the outs with Trump, and associate Michael Medeo. Yeah, I guess that Alina Haba is probably on the outs after losing a case to the tune of $83.3 million. I might have lost some confidence in her. Unfortunately, she's incompetent. Unfortunately, she's controllable by Donald Trump. And between her incompetence and Donald Trump's insistence of doing stupid things, it's $83.3 million. Frankly, the reason why it's $83.3 million is more to do with Donald Trump and his childish behavior in court and outside of court. This was done in full view of the jury, and they saw what E. Jean Carroll was saying. What's it going to take to make him shut up? They knew that $5 million wasn't going to do it. They figured 10 or 12 isn't going to do it. So they thought they'd throw the hammer down, and that's what they did. And guess what? It worked because he's not talking about E. Jean Carroll anymore. Now, the report notes, according to the person familiar with the matter, the private detective discovered that an early iteration of Trump's legal team failed to interview several witnesses in the Carroll case. Oh, big surprise. They fucked up. Something that should have been a basic step in defending the former president. But the private investigator's expense is an extraordinarily unusual one to place on a PAC. The report goes on to note that the money spent is just a tiny sliver of the funds being diverted from the embattled ex-president's reelection campaign to fend off multiple lawsuits. That's what the Republicans have to understand. All this money you sent to him to try to help him win the election, he's siphoning off and using in legal fees. Not quite what he told you he was going to do. Now, Pagliari wrote, at this point, it's clear prosecutors aren't the only ones causing Trump's legal headaches. His own lawyers and his suspicions of ineptitude seem to be in his head, too. As I've said, the guy is paranoid, and that's typical with narcissists. They will always talk like everybody's out to get them. Now, in this case, it's not so much paranoia. It's kind of true with Donald Trump. When you commit as many crimes as he's committed, yeah, there's going to be a lot of people coming after you. And that's exactly what is happening to Donald Trump. They're coming after his shit, and they're going to get it too. As I've said with the $83.3 million case, well, put it this way. There's a couple of ways he can do this. He can just put the money up himself, or he can get a bond, a surety, which means he gets like a bail bondsman to put up the money, and he puts up a percentage, which they get to keep in the end. But in the first case with Eugene Carroll, he had to put $5 million up in a bond, and he couldn't get a surety company to give him the money. So he had to go deep in his pocket and get his own $5.6 million and put it up. So now if he can't get somebody to give him a bond for $5 million, how do you think he's going to do with $83.3 million? I think that's going to be a problem. And it's going to be more than that because he's having to pay interest on this to the tune of $26,000 a day, which means when this is all said and done, he's probably going to owe more than $90 million. And that's even before we hear from Engeron, who's going to probably come back with a minimum of $370 million. The bottom line is this much money pretty much taps Donald Trump out and causes most of his property to be sold off. This is going to be the tough one for Donald Trump, and it is imminent because when you want to file an appeal, you have 30 days to do that and 30 days to come up with the money. So we'll see what, in fact, he does, but I don't know that he has many options. He certainly isn't in a position to get credit from anybody because nobody will give that fucker money because he doesn't pay it back. So we'll see what happens in that process. All right, we are going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.